What is going on, everybody? It's good to see you back. If you've been here before, if not, thanks for joining me. And we're going to talk Breitling again. About a year and a half ago, I reviewed the Breitling Super Ocean 242, and I will link that up here. I loved the watch and I hated the watch. You can watch that and see, but Breitling has definitely knocked it out of the ballpark with the follow-up to that, which is simply the 2019 Breitling Super Ocean 42. As most of you probably know, Breitling is really famous for their aviation watches. The Navitimer, the Aviator. Breitling really shines in terms of their aviation watches. But Breitling also has a really rich history when we talk about dive watches. So in 2019 at Basel World, they introduced the watch that we're going to be talking about today. And really, they took it back to the basics, back to the beginning of their dive watch history when the first Super Ocean came out in 1957. Now, a few years ago, a watch designer by the name of Georges Kern joined Breitling, and he really did a revamp of all of their lines, starting with the Navitimer, the Aviator. But I think the biggest difference we see from the Super Ocean 2 to the new Super Ocean line is that they've gone back to basics, gone back to their heritage, and really simplified the dial and the bracelet, especially on the 42. So let's take a deep dive into the 2019 Breitling Super Ocean 42, talk about the differences between the prior Super Ocean 242. Let's do it. All right, so let's take a real close look at the Breitling Super Ocean 42. Now, the thing I really like about the Super Ocean 42 as opposed to the Super Ocean 242 really are two differences. Number one is the simplicity of the dial with the hectagonal markers there, along with the 1269. You know, the previous version, and I'll put a picture of it up here, but the previous version had additional markings for basically what would amount to GMT time, the 13 through 24 below and inside the 1269 and the actual markers themselves. This is what I mean when I say that Breitling really is going back to their first Super Ocean heritage from 1957, and I think Georges Kern did a really good job of redesigning this watch to really just get back to basics and make a much cleaner watch. Now, you can tell from this one I did get the blue dial, blue bezel, because I do have other dive watches in black. Now, in terms of size, it is a 42 millimeter. We'll put the caliper on here. And we're showing 42.1. Let's do it one more time. There we go, 42.0. So we've got 42 for the case size. But for me, you know, much more important than looking at case size in terms of wearability really is the lug-to-lug distance. And as you can see here, we are right at 50 millimeters lug-to-lug. So it's, I mean, it is a decent size watch with the 42 millimeter case and the 50 millimeter lug-to-lug. I'm going to bring in the Rolex Submariner and the Tudor Pelagos just for comparison, so you can see, so you guys can see kind of the size comparison. So here you can see the size comparison with the Rolex Submariner 16803. This is a two-tone Submariner from 1987. It was a transitional model, and it does have the nipple dial there, but it shows you how Breitling Super Ocean 42 compares to the standard 40 millimeter Submariner. I always get comments when I do watch reviews on divers and I compare it to the Submariner. The comments always say, oh, another comparison to the Submariner. Yeah, it really, but that's because the perceived gold standard is compare it to the Sub. And I think for size, most people know what a Submariner looks like on the wrist, so this is a really good comparison. I'm also going to throw in a wrist shot here so you can kind of take a look and see how, on my 7 1/4 wrist, how the Breitling Super Ocean 42 wears on the wrist. Okay, so now I think this is much more of an apples to apples comparison when we take a look at how the Super Ocean 42 compares with the Tudor Pelagos. This, of course, is the Tudor Pelagos, the prior edition, the ETA edition, which I've had for a number of years now, 7 or 8 years now. This is the only watch that I ever wear on a rubber strap, and I absolutely love this watch. But there you can see the difference in size. So getting back to the case thickness here of the Super Ocean, you can see from the slightly raised sapphire crystal down to the case back, we're right at 12.5 millimeters. All right, so getting back to the Super Ocean in and of itself, we've talked a little bit about the dial. As you can tell, it does have a rehaut with a sub dial that gives you the triangle at the top and second markers all the way around to 59. And then we have the coin edge bezel, and just like the Super Ocean 242, it does have a rubberized coating on the bezel insert with cutouts with stainless steel markers for your timing device. It's standard from the triangle with the Lume pip down to 15, all 1 minute intervals, and then between 20, well, really between 15 and back around to 0 or 60, we just have 5 minute intervals. One of the things I liked about the Super Ocean 242 and this Super Ocean 42 is I really do like the rubberized cover on the bezel. I've knocked this watch around a little bit, and I did with the old Super Ocean 242, and I never got any scratches or gouges on the rubberized cover of the bezel insert. And I think the way that they bring the stainless steel markers 15, 30, 45 and the Lume pip out, it just gives it a really nice look. It's a little bit different than anything from any other manufacturers because you've got this really nice matte rubber, and then you do have the brushed markers coming through. The bezel in and of itself is a standard 120 click. It's fairly tactile, fairly nice when we talk in terms of how it feels. It feels sturdy. You can hear it. And it just gives you really nice feedback if you do use your timing bezel for diving or for anything else. The other thing I do like about this watch is the way the case is finished. It has a really nice brushed finish all the way on the top surfaces, and the side surfaces there are polished. It gives it a nice distinct look, and I kind of like the contrast between the brush top and the stainless sides. And this is a hefty watch. This is a very well made, very hefty watch. Let's talk about the bracelet really quickly. The bracelet is the main thing that sets this watch aside from the old Super Ocean 242. If you recall, the old Super Ocean 242, the bracelet was 100% polished. This one is 100% brushed. I always say this about Breitling, they have to do something to make their watches stand out, and not necessarily in a good way, whether it be size or doing something like polishing the entire bracelet on the Super Ocean 242. In fact, even though I do like the dial, the simplicity of the dial on this watch more than I did on the Super Ocean 242, it's cleaner, it's much easier to read, it's much more classic. The main reason I did get rid of the Super Ocean 242 and trade it for this watch is that I really prefer the polished bracelet. I'm sorry, the brush bracelet rather than the polished. It's Breitling's Professional 2 bracelet. It is kind of a pain in the rear end when you want to take out and replace links because Like Omega, the screws that you see here, the screws that you see here are very small, very hard to get in. They're not hard to get out, they're hard to get in, they're hard to get started. I do prefer the Rolex style full-length pin screws, but in any event, it's just a minor annoyance. But the bracelet itself is heavy, the bracelet's good quality, and I think the appearance is fine. The clasp in and of itself we'll get to here in a second, but it's a bit of a smaller clasp, but it works very well. It's got the flip lock type of clasp. It has Breitling's logo there with their font, the year, and then of course the Breitling wings that we see. And it is a really nice milled clasp that you would expect on a watch of this price. It's solid. Nothing bad to say about that clasp. It's utilitarian and it just works. It does have 4 micro adjustments there. So if your wrist swells and contracts like mine does during the summer, during the winter, I'm always one smaller in the winter than I am in the summer. And during the summer, depending on what I'm doing during the day, I may adjust it if I need to. It's not as convenient as the new Submariner clasp that Rolex has that make it much quicker to make a micro adjustment. But in any event, it's a very good quality clasp, and you can make any adjustments you need. And the lug width is 20 millimeters on this watch. If you want to put a NATO strap on, if you wanted to put leather on, if you wanted to replace the strap for any reason, it does take a 20 millimeter lug width strap / bracelet. So I want to talk about the movement really quickly here. The movement on this is the Breitling caliber 17. It is basically Breitling taking an ETA 2824-2 movement, which the 2824 would be this movement without the date complication. The 2824-2 that I'll call 2824-2, of course, does add the date complication, and the way that Breitling utilizes it here is at the standard 3 o'clock position. So Breitling takes the 2824-2 and they do beef it up, they modify it to make it chronometer certified, and they call it their caliber 17 movement. And I have found that this runs about really about a minute to a minute and 15 seconds fast per month. I don't wear this watch all that much. Typically, if I'm wearing a suit during the day, I'll be wearing my Rolex 16803 two-tone. But I do wear this watch for casual wear. If I'm wearing a polo shirt, if I'm wearing a sweater, I'll wear this watch quite often. So you could wear this with a suit. It's bordering on thick enough that it can interfere with cuffs on a dress shirt, but it isn't really too bad. If you wear your cuffs a little bit looser, you certainly could wear this with a suit. This watch does also come in black. Of course, this is the blue model. It does also come in black. So Breitling's caliber 17 COS chronometer is certified at -4 to +6 seconds in a 24-hour period. I certainly get better results than that with it running at about 60 to 70 seconds fast per month. Not bad, pretty standard. It also has a 38-hour power reserve, water resistant, with a water rating down to 50 bars or 500 meters. So certainly this would be a great watch for snorkeling, skin diving, and non-commercial diving down to 500 meters. This particular model has a retail price of $4,250 US dollars. Of course, that's Breitling's suggested retail price, MRP, but the reality is you can find this watch new for cheaper, either at an authorized dealer. You can probably get this watch here for about $38.50 from an authorized dealer, or if you went gray market somewhere like Joma's shop, you're probably looking at about $2,850 to $3,000 for this model. All right, guys, so I'm gonna throw a Lume shot in here as well. I always forget to do that. Almost forgot to do it, so I'll do it right here. Here you can see the Lume on this is really good. It does a really good job of illuminating the 1269 plus the 5-minute markers. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I just wanted to do a little comparison versus the prior model and tell you my thoughts on it. If you have this watch and you like it, comment down in the comment sections. If this is a watch you're interested in, let me know. Also, let me know if you like this one better than the prior version, and if so, why? If not, why not? As always, guys, I appreciate you watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, click that thumbs down 2 times. And as always, see you in the next one.